Hello, welcome to today's video. We are on page 113 of the Keyboard Musicianship, Book 1. So we're talking about improvising. This is to continue from page 72, previously in the book. We're going to add on to that and see how much we have been improving upon our improvisational skills, our compositional skills. So it says here that we are going to improvise completions to the question phrases shown below on page 113 there. And it says here, see if you are able to work a complete scale into your answer. So, of course, we can say the scale of, like, for example, the first one's E major. So I'm going to go ahead and say, when they say complete scale, let's just make it a pentascale, okay? Now, it says here, harmonies consists of tonic, 1, and dominant, 5, 6, 5, and that's it. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is analyze the melody for the first 4 measures. We have 4 measures given to us, and we have to respond with an additional 4 measures. So the first step obviously would be to play the melody. Okay, so that's what it sounds like. We're going to analyze the question, which is going to be the first 2 measures. The answer will be measures 3 and 4. Okay, so let's take a look. We have some ascending and then a descending third, spelling out a triad of E major. So it's going to be 4, 5, 3, and that's the melody. Now let's go ahead and take a look at measures 3 and 4. And let's see if this is a contrast, a repetition, or a sequence. Now the first thing we see is sequences usually start a second or above or below the first note. But we can rule that out because, well, this is not exactly a sequence, because although the rhythm is exactly the same, we can say a rhythmic sequence. We cannot count it properly as a sequence because the intervals are different. So we have the thirds on that first measure, but in the third measure, we just have steps, which is seconds. And of course, the intervals are different on measure 4 from measure 2. So this is not an exact sequence. Is it a repetition? Nope. As we mentioned, it's exactly different. So we're going to go ahead and say this is a contrast. Okay, so the contrast is, instead of moving in thirds, we're moving by seconds. And we don't just go up twice and come down once. We move up for 4 notes, and then we come down a third here, repeated note, down a second, whereas on measure 2 it goes down a third. So that's the kind of contrast we have. Now it's asking us, with this entire 4 measure phrase, let's make that completely be a question, and then we're going to answer with another 4 measures, ending on E, of course. Okay, so the best option would be to recreate the first 2 measures at least. So we want to include not just one element, but we want to try to include 2 elements. So we're going to do a repetition, and then we're going to also go ahead and do a contrast. And now we're going to repeat the first 2 measures on measures 5 and 6, but then for the last 2 measures, 7 and 8, we're going to sequence, or excuse me, we're going to contrast and end on the tonic. So let's see what kind of idea we can come up with. So for measures 5 and 6, that's more of an appropriate idea. Now, I don't want you to be using this idea for completing your answer, but the first two measures, 5 and 6, go ahead and make that into a repetition, okay? And as for the last two, make sure that you end on tonic. And I kind of switched the two. And now let's go to number 2. So we see that we are in the key of G major here. Our chords are G, D7 or 5, 6, 5, G. So let's go ahead and analyze the melody. So kind of like sequence, no, not sequence, but kind of like a tonic outline there of the triad. 2, 3, rest. So definitely between these two phrases, we have contrast. And then as mentioned before, go ahead and make the first two measures the repetition for 5 and 6. Now the contrast that I used here, so instead of going down from A, G, A, B, I did it the opposite. I did a mirror image. And then of course I ended on G tonic instead of B, the third. And then if you want to include the quarter rest at the end, you can, or you can just make it an entire whole note. So analyze the first 4 measures as a question and answer, and then use that as an entire question, repetition for 5 and 6 from 1 and 2, and then contrast from 3 and 4 into measures 7 and 8. The harmonies will essentially be the same. Number 1 will be a little bit different. You're going to kind of switch the last two from here, excuse me, to that one, okay? So let's just keep that in mind. Now remember, when you do your contrast, make sure that you change one element and keep the others the same, okay? Please review the elements of music that you have on your assignment sheet, or let's go back to page 72 and maybe even watch that video, okay? So please come up with your ideas and don't write them down, play them, maybe record them audio, and remember them when we play it at the lesson. Okay, we'll see you next time. Bye.